Hi, my name's Kristine Watterson. For my public service announcement, I decided to speak about mental health and the options available for treatment of different types of mental health, specifically, in this case, suicidal depression. First, I want to tell you a story about me. This is me. When I was 8 years old, we had recently moved from Northern California to Utah. We lived in a one-story home in California, and when we moved to Utah, we moved to a 3-story home. So I lived in an upstairs bedroom that had a roof right outside my window. I would often open my window, pop out my screen, and sit on the roof. The reason why I would go out there was, 1, to cry, and 2, because I was convinced that if I jumped off that roof to the sidewalk below, that it would end my life. So I frequently went out there and cried because I wanted to end my life, and I knew that it wasn't the right thing to do. I was only 8 years old. I'd like to share some mental health information with you. Major depressive disorder affects approximately 7.3 million people in the United States, or about 7.1% of the US population. 1.9 million children ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with depression, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children aged 10 to 14, people aged 15 to 24, and adults aged 25 to 34. It is the third highest cause of death for age groups 35 to 44. That's the group in which I fall. I'm 42 years old. And the group 45 to 54 years old. By the time they hit 55, people with depression, I guess they decide to stay here because it's the 8th leading cause of death at that point. So that's a big deal. Let me tell you some of the medications that I have tried. This is traditional treatment for suicidal depression, and that is typically SSRIs. I'm not going to get into the medical terms or the technical terms of things, but I am going to tell you some of the medications that I personally have taken and weaned off of, okay? Paxil, Lexapro, Celexa, Prozac, Zoloft, Prestige, and Rapid Flux. I may not be saying all of those correctly because they are difficult to say. But let me share with you some of the symptoms that you will have trying to wean off of these medications that may or may not work for you. And usually you don't know until you've been taking them about 6 weeks. It doesn't seem like a long time, but when you have suicidal ideations, 6 weeks is a long time for something to not work. And these are our options. These are the withdrawal symptoms of all of these drugs: dizziness, vertigo, lightheadedness, difficulty walking, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, irritability, headaches, insomnia, diarrhea, chills, shock-like sensations, burning, prickly, or skin-crawling sensations. That's one that I often had. Visual disturbances, impaired concentration, fogginess, vivid dreams, a detached out-of-body experience, suicidal thoughts, which you have before you take them anyway, so that's not beneficial, psychosis, catatonia, or a state of unresponsiveness, muscle pain. I have experienced almost all of those symptoms in withdrawal from all of the medications I listed. Those are the options for treating suicidal depression. This is me, about 17, in high school. This is actually my husband who I dated in high school, which is why I chose this picture because it's super cute. And at this age, I knew where my parents' firearms were. I was often going to their room when they were gone, holding their firearms in my hand and sitting in a chair and crying. This may not seem like a huge deal because I didn't actually pull the trigger. I often put the gun to my head and cried because I wanted so desperately to leave, to be done. But the main thing that kept me personally from committing suicide is, one, I was not inebriated. Often when people commit suicide, they are drunk. But of course, a child from 10 to 14 is probably not. I was not. And I did not make this decision mainly because I felt that it was wrong, that it was morally wrong, and that I would be accountable for that decision. If you were looking at this girl, would you think that she had suicidal depression? Probably not. If you had known me at that time, you would not have thought I had suicidal depression. The cause of suicidal depression, as I understand it, is a lack of chemical production in my brain. Now, I can't do anything to alter that chemical production. Besides, take these medications that have been offered to me that cause side effects that I find unacceptable. My therapist turned me towards meditation. Meditation has been shown to be helpful, mainly because it teaches you to be still, to feel emotions and sit in them instead of avoiding them, which is often what happens when you take these medications. My husband said in his own words that when I was taking Prozac, I was a robot, that I was emotionless. You would think that being emotionless would be the answer to feeling uncomfortable emotions like wanting to rid the world of you. But it has been shown that feeling the emotions and sitting in them leads to breakthroughs. So this leads me to psychedelics. When my therapist led me to learn about meditation, I also learned on Netflix, amazingly enough, on a series called The Mind Explained. Episode number 5 is about psychedelics. Specifically, the psychedelic I'm talking about is psilocybin. It is derived of a mushroom. Let me tell you a little bit about the psilocybin studies. I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can. This is baseline depression as measured by the doctors studying psilocybin at Johns Hopkins. This is the depression as reported a week after. This is the depression as reported 2 weeks, and so on, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 3 months. Still at 3 months, which in 3 months you will experience highs and lows in your life. And still at 3 months, it is half of what was reported at baseline. So why should you care? You may already know the answer to this before it even came out of my mouth. Maybe all of this struck a chord with you. Maybe you have a sister, a spouse, a friend. Maybe you have someone that struggles with the same things that I do. And maybe you don't even know yet. So, my public service announcement is, 1, be kind to the people around you. Even if they're smiling, they may be curled up in their closet at night because they so badly want to die. And 2, we don't have to give up hope. There are other options, and I believe that psilocybin may be a great option for someone like me that's 42, has taken countless medications, knows what all of the side effects are, and is willing to try something like psilocybin in a controlled environment. I believe we have a right to these things, that we should be able to try something that grows from our earth to heal our brains. I hope someday to have this opportunity myself, and I hope that I've opened your mind to see that there are more options than just traditional Western medicine. And we should look everywhere and never give up when we have a problem.